तस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवंश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिते नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Namaskar. Today we are going to start from verse number 19, chapter 4. From 19 to 23 we will chant together. Here we see in these few verses the Lord is describing about the perfection of knowledge and actions. यस्य सर्वे समारम्भाः कामसङ्कल्पवर्जिताः ज्ञानाग्निदग्धकर्माणं तमाहुः पण्डितं बुधाः। Yasya, one whose survey all sorts of samarambhaha attempts, kama based on desire for sense gratification, sankalpa determination, varjitaha are devoid of, jnana of perfect knowledge, agni by the fire, dagdha burnt, karmanam whose work, tam him, ahuhu declare, panditam learned, buddhaha those who know. Translation. One is understood to be in full knowledge, whose every endeavor is devoid of desire for sense gratification. He is said by sages to be a worker for whom the reactions of work have been burned up by the fire of perfect knowledge. Text 20. त्यक्त्वा कर्मफलासङ्गं नित्यतृप्तो निराश्रयाः कर्मण्यभिप्रवृत्तोऽपि नैव किञ्चित् करोति सः. त्यक्त्वा, having given up, karma phala asangam, attachment for fruitive results, nitya, always, triptaha, being satisfied, nirashrayaha, without any shelter, karmani, inactivity, abhipravrittaha, being fully engaged, api, in spite of, na, does not, eva, certainly, kinchit, anything, karoti, do, saha, he. Translation. Abandoning all attachment to the results of his activities, ever satisfied and independent, he performs no fruitive action, although engaged in all kinds of undertakings. 21. निराशीर्यत चित्तात्मा त्यक्त सर्वपरिग्रहाः शारीरं केवलं कर्म कुर्वन्नाप्नोति किल्बिषम्. Nirashihi, without desire for the result. Yata, controlled. Chitta atma, mind and intelligence. Tyakta, giving up. Sarva, all. Parigraha, sense of proprietorship over possessions. Shariram, in keeping body and soul together. Kevalam, only. Karma, work. Kurvan, doing. Na, never. Apnoti, does acquire. Kilbisham, sinful reactions. Translation. Such a man of understanding acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled, gives up all sense of proprietorship over his possessions, and acts only for the bare necessities of life. Thus working, he is not affected by sinful reactions. 22. यदृच्छालाभसन्तुष्टो द्वन्द्वातीतो विमत्सरः समः सिद्धावसिद्धौ च कृत्वापि न निबध्यते. Yadricha, out of its own accord, labha, with gain, santushtaha, satisfied, dvandva, duality, atitaha, surpassed, vimatsaraha, free from envy, samaha, steady, siddhau, in success, asiddhau, failure, cha, also, krutva, doing, api, although, na, never, nibadhyate, becomes affected. Translation. He who is satisfied with gain which comes of its own accord, who is free from duality and does not envy, who is steady in both success and failure, is never entangled, although performing actions. 23. गतसङ्गस्य मुक्तस्य ज्ञानावस्थितचेतसाः यज्ञायाचरतः कर्म समग्रं प्रविलीयते. Gatasangasya, of one unattached to the modes of material nature. Muktasya, of the liberated. Jnana avasthita, situated in transcendence. Chetasaha, whose wisdom, Yajnaya, for the sake of Yajna, that is Krishna, Acharataha, acting, Karma, work, Samagram, in total, Praviliyate, merges entirely. Translation. The work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence. Thank you. So as we see, these verses tells us about the perfection of knowledge and action. As we studied in last three verses, 16 to 18, karma, akarma and vikarma, and we studied how karma can bind us and how karma can itself, we can do karmas without getting entangled to the reactions of those karmas, actions. So now here in these verses, Bhagavan is giving a complete picture of the perfection of knowledge and actions. And he says that the Panditam, that is the learned, Panditam, Tamahu Panditam Buddhaha, in verse number 19. Those who know, Ahuhu, Ahu means declare them as Pandita. So who knows all this can declare the people who are in perfect knowledge and actions as Panditam. So we see the reaction of actions is burned by the fire of knowledge. As Bhagavan is saying, Jnana Agni Dagdha Karmana, by the fire of knowledge, Jnana Agni, and whose endeavor are completely devoid of any desire of sense gratification, that is Kama Sankalpa Varjitaha. So we see here in Sridhara Swami's commentary, we see that he says that Janaka Maharaja, as example he cites, that when a body and senses are acting, one can still experience the self or Atma as different from the body and mind and the senses. And so he sees inaction, natural inaction in the of the soul. So if the body and senses are performing their activities and if the Atma is different from them, so if that self or Atma can be experienced, so the natural inactivity of the soul is obvious. So in that way we can also see this. And as we see some visible signs of acting in transcendental knowledge, we can summarize from these few verses. Like one, he does his duties to the best of his abilities. A man who is in perfect knowledge, how does he act? One, does his duties to the best of his abilities. Number two, he does not endeavor to protect things already in his possessions. Number three, he is not anxious to secure things. So these two things are in Niryoga Kshema. Niryoga Kshema. So he is not endeavoring to protect things which are already in his possession and not anxious to secure things that he does not have yet. So number four, we see that he does not care for the maintenance of his personal body. He is not even concerned of maintaining his personal body. Number five, he acts out of pure love for the Supreme Lord. So that natural love of God is there in his heart. Number 6, he is always satisfied, santushta. Number 7, he is without any shelter other than the feet of the Lord. He does not struggle for getting any shelter other than the feet of the Lord. He is always happy in whatever the situation he is in. Number 8, he performs no fruitive activities, although engaged in all sorts of activities. He is engaged in all sorts of activities, but as he is completely unattached with the actions, so there is no fruitive action that he performs. Number 7 is desireless in all sense. Number 10, he has a controlled mind and intelligence. Number 11, there is no sense of proprietorship over possession. And number 12 is he is beyond all dualities. Number 13, he is free from envy. And number 14, he is steady in success and failure. So these are the 14 points that we have summarized from these few verses from 19 to 23, where the Lord describes about the perfection of action in knowledge. A man who has the knowledge of transcendental knowledge, how he acts, what is the characteristics that is described. And in verse number 24, we see Bhagavan is concluding. Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir Brahmagnau Brahmanahutam Brahmaiva Tena Kantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. Brahma, spiritual in nature. Arpanam, contribution. Brahma, the supreme. Havihi, butter. Brahma, spiritual. Agnau, in the fire of consummation. Brahmana, by the spirit soul. Hutam, offered. Brahma, spiritual kingdom. Eva, certainly. Tena, by him. Gantavyam, to be reached. Brahma, spiritual. Karma, inactivities. Samadhina, by complete absorption. Translation. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities, in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. That is absolute. Okay, so we see that this particular verse is actually concluding what he has said in the last few verses. That is, what is karma and how to act in transcendental knowledge. That was the topic of discussion in the last few verses. What is karma and how to act in transcendental knowledge. So we see acting in divine consciousness or supreme consciousness or transcendental consciousness or Krishna consciousness is action which can be considered as yajna or sacrifice for the absolute. Like in that state of transcendental consciousness, we see the contributor, the contribution, the consumption, and the performer, the results, everything becomes one in the absolute or the supreme. Which means all the material products used in the service of the Lord become spiritual, including human body, our body, mind, speech, everything. So as everything belongs to the Lord, Ishavasyam idam sarvam. So when they are used for Him, they are actually getting back its original nature. As Bhagavan says in 9.16, Navama Adhyaya, Aham kratur aham yajna swadhaham aham aushadham mantroham ahame vajyam aham agnir aham hutam. So I am the ritual, I am the sacrifice, I am the oblation, I am the healing herbs, I am the transcendental chant, I am the butter, fire, and the offering, everything. So that is why when we utilize all the material things in the service of the Lord, everything gets back its original character. So everything becomes spiritual. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.